You're listening to Startup Recruitment Failures. Behind every successful founder lies a tale of recruitment ups and downs. Join me on this thrilling journey and learn firsthand from top leaders on how to navigate through challenges and stay ahead of the game. We all make mistakes, but the real growth happens when we learn from them early on. So today's guest is Luis Valente. He is CEO and co-founder at iLoF, digital health company working on personalized medicine. And you recently secured $10 million. Is that correct, Luis?
Yeah, so we've been operating for a couple of years now, and in total, we've secured actually over 10 million euros in funding from multiple sources. European, UK, and American. So yeah, very, very happy to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation.
Thank you so much for coming and congratulations for such a great achievement.
Oh, thank you. It's more what you do with it and less about money, I guess.
That's correct. That's correct. So, could you tell me more about the iLoF and for all the listeners to better understand your background and what you're building?
No, absolutely. So, iLoF is a deep tech health tech company working on the personalized medicine space. So, we've been collecting massive amounts of multimodal data, so data from various sources and various modalities. And we've been working closely with clinicians, scientists, and just overall researchers in pharmaceutical companies, biotechs, and leading hospitals to help them take personalized therapeutics to the market faster. So we're helping take life-saving medications for illnesses such as Alzheimer's or ovarian cancer into the market faster, cutting up to 70% of the time and 40% of the cost of finding the right patients for these clinical studies.
Hmm.
So the basis of what we're doing is the personalized medicine revolution, which is the idea that the same medication will not work in the same way for two different people. And that the
Okay.
only way to actually get life-saving medications into the market is to take the differences into patients' profiles into account. And this is what we do.
Wow, this is super impressive. Congratulations on your mission. And for how long are you doing this?
Yeah, so we started out in 2019. So we've been doing this for close to 5 years now. Yeah, and we have a team of close to 30 people based in the UK and yeah, Southwest Europe, in Portugal, and very recently in the US.
Nice, very nice. And it looks like a lot of hiring experience you have gained throughout these years.
Well, a lot of scar tissue too, but yeah, for sure. No, hiding is one of the most important activities that you can do in a company, but even more in a deep tech company such as iLoF.
Okay, why is it more? Of course, in every company it's very important, but how different from software development company, for example, are talents you are looking for?
So we're working in the intersection between three areas. So data science, AI, which, well, everyone is
Mhm,
very familiar with,
mhm.
physics, so photonics, and biology. And these are three completely different career paths. These are three different even kinds of people that do not normally work with each other, do not normally work on the same company. And the
Yeah.
mission and let's say the competitive advantage of iLove is to try to find a group of stellar people to work together and to bring their expertise on their specific domains and then build and take a life-saving platform into the market. And so the
Mhm.
majority of people will not have experience or even interest in working in multidisciplinary teams. So they won't fit, or they won't have the right background. They won't have worked or studied the specific areas of science that we are looking for. Or for one reason or another, they're not willing to either relocate or they're not willing to work in the geographies where the company is present. So I normally say that there's probably 10,000 people in the world that could potentially work in iLove. And of this
Mm-hmm.
10,000, maybe 10% would work in a startup, and of this 1,000, maybe 10% would have the right culture to work in. So we're literally finding the best needles in the haystack, and this is why just recruiting the right people is potentially one of the most value-added activities that we do in the company. Talent, well, we have a lot of IP, we have a lot of assets, but I'll say talent is potentially more important than patents, papers, and even the assets around the product.
Mm. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Having the situation as such, I do understand the importance. And since this is the Startup Failures podcast, Recruitment Failures podcast, could you share of the failure you had and the one which made you the biggest impact to grow and to maybe like with having these insights to improving your recruitment process.
Well, a lot of scar tissue around that. And so I can absolutely learn one thing or two I can absolutely share one thing or two that we've learned, and hopefully a
Hmm.
couple of things that yeah, we're also doing right now. Um,
Okay, great.
so one of the things that we've realized is that it takes a special kind of people to work in a
Hmm.
startup. And what I've worked in other scale-up startups before, and there's that saying of culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And I used to be like, okay, whenever we are going to hire, let's hire for the people with the best CV, the people that have worked in the most recognized companies, that work with the most impressive groups, that have the best scientific papers, because I'm sure they will know they'll be transformational. And that didn't work at all. So what we
Hmm.
realize is that it's a lot easier to select the people that have the right and the best cultural fit, and
Hmm.
then try to get them up to speed with the technology, with the science, than the other way around. It's selecting people that have been
Why
working.
it didn't work the other way you tried first?
It's easier to teach. It's easier to align on scientific background and knowledge than it is to align on culture and values. It's a lot
Mm.
harder to change the way someone's approaches work and someone's approaches problems than it is to actually teach someone about a specific domain inside artificial intelligence.
Mm.
And this is one of the things that I think we are now doing right. We're looking for people that we will have fun working with, that will have fun working with us. So I normally, this
Hmm.
is actually one of the questions I normally do in an interview. Do you think you'll have fun? And if we don't believe that the person will have the time of their life working with us, then we don't hire. Because to work in a company like iLoF, you really need to love what you're doing. And actually,
Hmm.
this might be an interesting, funny insight. Normally, I realize that the people that stay and grow the fastest in iLoF are normally people that, after a couple of months of joining iLoF, they normally have a variation of the following conversation with me, which is, Luis, iLoF is a company that moves very fast. Its technology is like super hard to execute and understand. So my job is incredibly difficult, but I'm having the time of my life. So I actually had a much easier job before. I don't know, maybe they came from a corporate, or maybe they came from, I don't know, academia. So I had a much more quiet job here. Here I work a lot more in terms of, like, I need to put in a lot more effort. But I can't
Mm.
help it. I love what I do so much that I can't help it. And normally this is the people that feel in a way compelled to stay and to grow in the company despite the difficulties. This is normally the kind of people that ends up having
Yeah.
the longest and more productive stay in the
Yeah,
company.
if there is a strong and inner motivation, so it's easier for person to grow
Yeah,
themselves, right? Instead of learning and teaching them and growing them externally,
absolutely.
despite the fact if they're really professional and pretty senior.
Yeah.
And so if you're hiring international and you mentioned the relocation aspect, what happens if you hire a person and they move with a family and then you see that it's actually not working as it was expected and you need to fire that person, but that person with a family just changed the country for your company? Does it ever happen?
It did. It did, Indra, and to be very transparent, so startups are a little bit like relationships.
Mhm.
It's like a little bit like love. So it's forever until it lasts, right? No one gets married to divorce, but divorce happens. We know it's a fact of life, and the same
Mm.
with companies, and what we do. So the same way that in the, I guess, relationships, you try to remain on good terms with the person and to try and stay with the positives of that interaction. We try to do the same with the company, and what I can tell you is that we're doing a lot of relocation, and in the cases where we've reached out to the person and we've convinced the person to move, and then for one reason or another on it wasn't going to work on the long term, and then what we normally do is, number one, we try to come to terms with the person, and really
Mhm.
and most times, I would say almost all times, we were able to mutually agree that, yeah, we wouldn't see the relationship growing to be 5, 10 years
Is it
old.
easy
So we
to
would
come to the mutual agreement?
come again. Can you repeat it?
Is it is it easy to come to the mutual agreement?
It's not. So number one of the things that I believe we are doing a bit better now, and we should be keeping doing better now, is so
Mhm,
when you have a culture of being kind, you don't feel comfortable giving feedback to people, especially negative feedback. And that normally comes
mhm,
back to bite you because if you don't feel comfortable telling the person, look, I don't think this is working out, be careful. And if you don't do it soon enough, then you'll create misaligned expectations. On the other hand, if you manage expectation with a person and right from the start tell her, hey, and this is, well, luckily or unluckily, this is not something that the CEO should do in most cases. This is something that the inline manager should do with the person. Sit down
mm,
every week, every 2 weeks, every month. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Okay, this is how I see it. I think that things are going well this way, or I think things are absolutely not going well on that way. And making sure that people are on the same page before you actually make a decision and before you actually need to act, it's 90% of the job. Then the other 10% is when you're coming to terms with a person, okay, this is not going to work out, you need to show compassion. Okay, and one of the things that
mhm,
you were mentioning, Indra, one of the things we've done in the past with the person where we mutually agreed that wasn't going to work is we ended up continuing to support the person for
mhm,
actually for a longer period than that person stayed in the company. So we ended up supporting that
mhm,
person longer outside of the company than we supported her in the company. But it was important because, again, I don't think the team would understand it in any different way. When one of your core values is to be kind, yeah, you just need to take that as a business loss and just yeah, and just do it.
mhm. Jobrely now offers full cycle recruitment services, from creating a job ad to presenting shortlisted candidates after initial interviews. Fill out the project brief, and candidate profiles will be sourced for you. Connect your LinkedIn account, and a personalized messaging sequence will be sent from your LinkedIn account to all of the potential candidates. And after initial interviews, a comprehensive scorecard of shortlisted candidates will be presented. Visit jobrely.com and start a free trial. Yeah, so employer branding and not just branding on social media, but like real personal branding is taking care
Yeah,
of people
yeah.
who work for you. And it doesn't matter for how long, but if they did some commitment and investment, you should pay back, right?
And
So
support
this is.
and support in any way you can. And sometimes it's so there's various kinds of support. Sometimes the person just wants to find another place, and then you need to support that person. Sometimes it's a financial matter where you can help, right? And again, as a startup, you're not going to have the resources to pay. whatever layoff
Yeah.
package that Google would have, or that LinkedIn would have, or you can't. But you can support whatever you can. And
Mhm.
and yeah, I mean, so very much what you can do, you should do.
Mhm.
And this is what we always try to live by.
And thinking about this situation, so what was the reason? What was the mismatch? Was it from the professional perspective, or was it more from personal interaction, like personal
I think we
reasons?
became better. We became better, especially in the recent. Yeah, it became better. We became better, especially in the recent years, at
Hmm.
spotting problems with technology, like with the technological background or
Hmm.
scientific background. So most times it's just there might not be a fit. There might not be a fit on rhythm. There might not be a fit on aspirations. On some, a lot of times the teams just rejects the person, and it's not reject
Hmm.
because the person is no good. It's just that again, it's like a group of friends, right? You have your own group of friends, and you fit in your group of friends, right? Because you have your shared culture, your shared values, your inside jokes, and then another person comes along, and if that person shares the same values, is going to integrate. If it doesn't, then you should try to bring everyone to a mutual ground of understanding. And okay, this is how we work. This is I'll give you an example. For example, is that we really incentivize people to ask questions. Like anyone can make
Hmm.
mistakes. Anyone can make mistakes, but you need to be curious enough to ask questions. And if you make a mistake, the least that is expected from you is you need to try. So you should have the incentive and you should care enough to try and understand why did you make that mistake and what did you learn, right? If a
Hmm.
person is not committed or doesn't care enough to, okay, I made a mistake, I'll now invest some time, doesn't need to be a lot, to try and understand what could I have done differently and how do I assure that it doesn't repeat again. If that doesn't happen and the person's like, no, a mistake happened, it's fine, um, then it's probably not going to be
They're
a
not learning from
no
the
learning, and
mistake,
it's probably
right?
not going to be a good fit for the team. And then the team itself will take it as yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of cultures where this would be considered acceptable, but in our culture, it's not going to fit, and this sometimes happen. And again, I mean, we've actually had more often than not, whenever it doesn't work, people come to us and they say, this is not working out. I don't see this growing. And it's mutual. It's always been mutual. We're like, yeah, it's actually not working out. And then the person is like, okay, perfect. So I'm going to need X amount of time to find a new place. Is it okay? No, yeah, it's perfect. And then that's normally what happens. Yeah, I like to think we
Okay.
became a lot better. So speaking about failures, that's why it feels like we fail 100% of the time. We don't fail 100% of the time. But
No,
whatever
but
we fail,
I guess in order to grow and to learn and to become successful, you need to try a
yeah,
lot, and therefore you fail quite a
yeah.
lot. I mean, successes are not like sometimes it happens like you're succeeding for like one project to another, but usually if you do a lot, you fail a lot. So this is the
No,
only
absolutely.
way for startups,
And
especially.
one of the things that I learned is that and this is a little. I used to play sports many years ago in a galaxy far away, another lifetime. And one of the things that I understood, and actually we can give the example of football players, right? So the same player
Hmm.
can fit very well on a team and can be a game-changing player and can go on to win a Champions League. And then you put him on a different team, and it seems like a
Yeah.
completely different player. And
Yeah.
what basically what it says is that it's not about the person. I mean, it didn't forgot how to play football. It's just that
Hmm.
it's not the right framework. It's not the right group for him. It's not going to highlight. So and sometimes, so ideally in a group, you should be in a group that highlights your strengths and compensates for your weaknesses. And sometimes it's the opposite, right? You're in a group
Hmm.
where everyone has the same strength as yours, so your strengths is going to be unnoticed, and then your weaknesses are going to be very highlighted because they might be areas where the team is really lacking and they were really
Yeah.
expecting you to fill in. And this sometimes happen. And a lot of the failures in hiring happen actually because of that. Because we fail to spot
Yeah.
that the person is going to be where the person is going to be weak and where the person is going to be strong.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like a dynamic, right? So you need to, as in football, when you're building a team, you analyze everyone's strong and weak points, and then you build it and basically, plan the game in
Yeah.
advance, right? So the same as with humans, and like when it's just changing a company, it's already a big step for a person to move to another team on another project. But if you're changing a country with your whole family, it's even more important. Have you find out the ways how to check this cultural match before uh, making person relocating? And are there any tips or insights you have gained throughout your
So I,
experience?
I can tell you what we've did wrong in the past, and I can tell you what we're doing now that it seems to be working. Okay. But
Okay,
this is
perfect.
work in progress. So what did we do wrong in the past? We tend that you can know a person deeply from just the one or two conversations and it's going to be fine. It's not going to be fine. Like
Mhm.
some people, and I know I draw this parallelism a lot, but I feel it very deeply that startup relationships are in many cases a little bit like marriages. The ups and downs, and even in a marriage, right? Sometimes it takes years to fully get to know someone. So it's
Mm.
absolutely there's zero way that you can understand how that person is going to engage in such a complex dynamics as a startup in just
I
from a couple
agree.
of conversations. It's just not going to work. Um,
Mm.
so, but there's things you can do to gain extra points. One thing you can do is like we try to have different people from different parts of the company engage with the person. Ideally bring the person to the lab or to the office, right? In our case, we
Mhm.
have a lab, we have an office. We try to bring the person in. We try to fly the person in. We try to have it spend time with the team. We go for dinner. I mean, it depends on the profile, but sometimes we go for dinner, we go for lunch. We see how the person behaves outside of a work. Uh, and again, I mean,
Mhm.
I would love, Indre, I would love to tell you that the startup relationship is just professional and that whatever happens outside work is outside work and it doesn't matter. And unfortunately, in a startup, it doesn't happen like that. It's just everything gets
Yeah.
very mixed and very fuzzy, and then things overlap, and you get to meet the families of the people you hire, and uh,
Yeah.
and so a lot of the times we just okay, let's go for dinner. Let's oh, you brought your wife. Let's go for dinner together. Let's get what do you do? What does your wife
Mm.
do? What do you like? What football player are you a fan? And these are a lot of times it gives us insights about the person. One thing that we also do, and a lot of people do it, is we try to really understand from people that worked with the person before um, if the person is going to fit. It's not is the person good or not. It's actually absolutely not like that. But is
Mhm.
it going to fit or not? And sometimes what we do is we literally ask the person just tell us people that work with you that we can have a chat
Mhm.
with. And we're not going to ask like, I mean, are you good or not? And we just want to understand yeah, how it is to engage and what do you like and what did you like? Because there's a lot of times where we do stuff and we like stuff that we didn't even realize. And normally this
Mhm.
information is going to come better from peers than actually from inline managers. So we love to do
Mhm.
like reference calls with peers, with previous peers is even better, like people that are no longer working
Okay,
with you.
that's very
And
interesting.
we do that. We do
Nice.
that all the time.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I really love that you're investing more time for flying the person in, right? And spending some more time and knowing them better. I remember I was relocating myself back then from Lithuania to Middle East. And of course, the manager flew to my city. We talked and discussed everything. But then I was like, almost traveling, and I was just thinking to myself, like, what did I do? Why didn't I ask, to go and visit that place before? Now I'm moving with all my things and I don't even know what is the environment. So it's like, I think it's a very uh, huge breakthrough for investing a little bit, but then still at least eliminating this tension
And,
for the person,
and one
especially.
of the things that we're venture backed, so we have investors, and even though of course we're post revenue, we have some revenue, but we have clients, and but we still, again, as we started the conversation, we've raised a significant amount of money, and we have some very very good investors on the cap table. And one of our investors, he normally uses to say, like, he's very good. We're very lucky with a lot of people like to give a lot of bad talk about investors, but I really can't complain.
Oh, that's
Really,
amazing.
well, I mean, it's not all roses. It's like, again, marriages, right? It's not all roses, but overall, I think they've been supportive, and I really feel so far I can't complain. Um, but one of them normally says that the best way to get to know someone is to work with a person. It's interesting, right?
Hmm.
But the problem is that normally to work with someone, you need to hire the person. And one of the things that we've realized is that a lot of times you can actually find a way to start engaging with a person, either on a small project, on an advisory basis, or even so. One thing that we've did, especially with people that are relocating, is okay, what's your notice period? Oh, my notice period is X. I don't know, 3 months, 2 months. It doesn't matter. And then when are you coming? Oh, I need to pack up my stuff. And this is after the person visited us in person. Oh, I need to
Hmm.
pack up my
Hmm.
stuff. I need to do this. I need to do that. Okay, what if we start working on a consulting contractual basis? You're not here yet, so you're not full time, but you can get to know the company. The company gets to know you. Then two things
Yeah.
happen. Number one, if it's very clear that it's not going to work, then you don't need to invest time, and I don't need to invest time. Then it's going to be best for both of us that we understand this sooner rather than later. And it never happened that we understood midway through this that we didn't want to work with a person, but we felt a lot more comfortable.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
was for the person, it was also better. That's number one. And number two, you also understand very quickly where are you going to have to dedicate time during the in-person onboarding or just doing the full-time onboarding from working with the person on this contractual basis. And in
Mm.
most times, it's actually not practical because the person has a non-compete and they can't work with us until they disconnect from the other business or whatever. But in the cases where that's possible, it was really, really
Mhm.
important. And I think it helped a lot.
Yeah, I love it, and especially looking from the people's perspective, right? So it's not just new job, a new company, and new peers. It's also a new
Yeah, yeah,
country,
yeah,
a
yeah.
new social life, and routines, and everything.
Yeah,
So if you can warm up at least at the minimal
yeah,
level with the task and requirement,
the
you
better.
feel more confidence,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely,
Before doing such a big move in
absolutely.
your life. Yeah, I love it. I really love it. And yeah, so we talked in the very beginning a little bit about the
Yeah.
motivation and that it's more important than the experience gained and all the credits. And you have this very nice and interesting story where your colleagues actually promoted a junior person to hire. Could you tell more
Oh,
about this?
absolutely. That's one of the cutest and more and the stories I'm more proud about how the company acted. So
Hmm.
this was a person that was doing an internship with us. And it was in a moment of the company where we had made a decision. Okay, we had a couple of junior positions. We filled all the junior positions we had, and we were actually in lack of a couple of. But sometimes we use the word bus drivers, right? So it's not senior people; it's just so bus drivers, people that have experience driving a bus, and driving a bus is hard, like a big vehicle, and there's a lot of sometimes it breaks down in the middle of the road. So it's just experience you pick up when driving a bus, and this is so at the point where we normally to people that have experience managing teams, we call bus drivers.
Okay.
And not literally bus drivers, like not literally. We're not in that line of business. Nothing against, but we're not in that line of business. And and so we were mostly looking for a bit more senior people. And then this person did an internship, and both me and my co-founder had very little to no interaction with the person
Mhm.
because of just, well, he was an intern and the way the company is structured, and we travel all the time, and there was very little interaction. And then suddenly one day, my co-founder comes to me and say, "Hey, so the team seems to feel very strongly that we should hire person A. Let's say person M.
Mhm.
We should
Mhm.
hire M because he seems like amazing, and I don't have a lot of interaction. I know we're not hiring, but at least we need to speak with the team because they seem to be very strong, feel very strongly about it that we should bring that person in." And this was just around when the internship was about to end. Um, and I went into that conversation. So I said, "Okay, perfect. Tell them to schedule." I went into that conversation thinking that I'm going to explain to them that we don't have the budget, we don't have the position on the agenda. It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't make sense. This is how I got into the conversation. And then I left the conversation actually with an agreement. Okay, actually, I don't know the person very well, but I trust your guts. I heard such a strong vouching, like a strong recommendation from various persons on the team that we brought the person. And a couple of years later, he's one of the rising stars of the company. And it was clearly the right decision.
Nice.
And this basically what shows us is that, so there's a very famous quote by Bill Gates, is that I whenever I see bright people, I hire them, and then I figure out what to do with those people later because I just know they'll find a way within the organization,
Yeah.
right? And then I guess it's the truth, right? If they're the right fit, if they're the right value, then they'll find a way to fit in the organization.
Mhm.
And this is something that we live by now.
And Luis, how to build this culture in a company, the environment that people would care about this and would even do
Go
some
out of their
extra
way. Go out
thing,
of their way.
to convince you. Sorry?
Go out of their way to convince someone it's not they're doing something that you're absolutely right. They're doing something that wasn't their job. Uh,
Mhm.
um, so number one, again, we only hire people that care. Like everyone in iLoF could be making a hell of a lot more money somewhere else, like working for a hedge fund, working for a cryptocurrency company. Nothing against. Again, I have a ton of friends in hedge funds, ton of friends in crypto, but I mean, if you're in it for the money, then there's a lot of ways in which you can make a whole lot more money. But if you're looking to change the world, if you care a lot about what we're doing about millions of patients that are suffering every day with illnesses without a treatment, like about big healthcare challenges like Alzheimer's, right? Then you really want to work in these problems. Again, you can't help it. It's like, so again, going back to the parallelism with relationships, like if you really love someone, then you're going to say, oh, this person is really annoying and it's just a pain and blah blah. But I love her. I can't help it. I'm drawn to that person. And normally, so number
Mhm.
one, the way we do is we hire people that are drawn to the project. Like they can't help it. They're just
Mhm.
drawn. They love it. They love everything. And no matter how hard it is, they can't help it. That's number one. Number two, we make sure to align the incentives. Okay.
Mhm.
There is not a scenario in which, so let me put it like that. I can't see a scenario in which the investors make money with iLoF being sold, the founders make money with iLoF being sold, and the team doesn't. That because everyone
Mhm.
has a piece of the company. Everyone
Mhm.
from the most junior full-time hire all the way to the whatever. And I can tell you that a big portion of the company is on the hands of the team. And I'm not
Mhm.
counting the founders. I'm just saying the remaining of the team. So the incentives are aligned. Yeah, and number three, I think everyone understands that their careers are being accelerated by being in iLoF. They're learning very fast. It's clearly a meritocracy. People grow, be the light whenever they are actually passionate about what they do. So they also feel like there's a direct short-term benefit from them for them for
Mhm.
um, so that's how you grow. In the end, I mean, so I guess your question is how do you grow accountability and sense of ownership? And yeah, so the way we do it
Yeah,
is
and be for people like as you said, like caring
yeah, yeah,
about the company future,
sense of
right?
ownership,
So
right? Because so the I
mm,
normally joke the best way of you feeling an owner is you being an owner, right? And again, everyone in
yeah.
iLoF is an owner. So whenever I sometimes joke, it's like it's not like it's your company. It is your company. It formally is, literally is. There's documented paperwork that shows that it is your company.
Mm,
So you should take care of your company.
yeah.
And then of course, some people own a bit more, some people own a bit less, but it is your company.
Hmm. And then talking about the fundraising, because you really did a very impressive job by attracting a really huge amount of money. And I really liked your insight that the problem you're
Oh
solving
yeah.
should be way more important to the founder when
Oh
talking to
yeah.
potential investors than the product you're building itself,
Especially in the
right? Could
early,
you?
especially in the early stages. So,
Mhm.
I mean, so pre-seed, an investor is not even going to invest in a problem. Many times, they're going to invest on a team. Just like it's going to be like, well, I don't know where. And again, going back to relationships, right? I don't know where you're going, but you're promising I want to be with you for the rest of my life. Well, in
Mhm.
this case, it's not for the rest of your life, it's just for 7 to 10 years. But still, a lot of times in pre-seed, it's just investor looks and say, I'm not sure where you're going. I don't think you're going on the right direction, but I trust you to figure it out.
Mhm.
Pre-seed, a
Mhm.
lot of times is this. Seed, it's a lot about the problem. Problem. You need to be the expert in your problem. You need to have validated that the problem works. And then you need to ideally have an MVP, right? You need to have like some proposal of how you're going to solve the problem. But from seed to Series A, they know you're going to struggle, right? They know you're going to struggle. They know you're going to pivot 1,000 times before you reach the right product, right? So, but if you love the problem, right? If you fall in love with the problem, you'll pivot. You'll pivot. You won't try to. You won't be a hammer looking for a nail, right?
Mhm.
Because it doesn't matter. You'll just find better solutions to deal with the problem that you already fell in love with. And
Mhm.
discovering a problem.
I really like it because it's not only for convincing investors, right, but also for being open-minded.
Oh yeah.
Because we all like all the greatest companies has pivoted
Oh
like
yeah.
at least five
Oh yeah.
times from LinkedIn
Oh
to
yeah.
others. And if you so in love with your product,
You
you're not
won't.
changing anything,
No
right?
one is going to tell you that. So we've done an acceleration program back in the day, 2019 in Boston. Amazing
Mm-hmm.
program, organized by MIT, Harvard Medical School, just ran by a bunch of senior executives from these institutions and a couple healthcare pharma executives. And there were two things that sticking with us, and that I just like literally laser engraved in my brain, which is no one is going to tell you your baby is ugly. No one. No
Mm.
one is going to ever tell you your baby is kind of bad looking. No one is going to tell you. You need to figure it out by yourself. And you need to be maybe if you ask in different ways, you'll start
Mm-hmm.
to get tips. But no one is going to tell you your baby is ugly. And
Mm-hmm.
that's number one. And number two, that internally, you need to make sure that you show your dirty underwear. So you can't hide it. You can't just hide it. Oh no, it's not there. Like you need to understand very, very well your problems, and then if it's not working out, then it's not working out, and then you need to take it behind the barn and kill it, and then make a new thing.
Yeah.
But you're not going to do it if you fall in love with your problem with your product. Because if you fall in love with your
Mm.
product, then all you're going to do is try to shove your product down everyone's throats. and you're going to do it until you run out of money or you run out of people to work with.
And how not to? Because you give all heart, all energy, you invest a lot, and then it's very difficult to admit that this is not working and I need to kill it and start doing something differently and then invest again. And there are many sayings like don't throw bad money, good money after bad money.
Right.
And then you're
Sunken
still like,
cost fallacy,
how?
right? Sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah.
Um, I think again, it comes back to it depends on where it started. If you started with an amazing product and then you figured out a problem and then it doesn't work, then what you're going to do is you're going to try and stick that product in a different problem. And maybe you're lucky, right? And a lot of
Mm.
companies are lucky. So I'll give you an example. I remember being young and studying that oil, just the gasoline, and that many times they were there was a product. I mean, they just discovered there was oil coming from the ground in a lot of places, and they were trying to find applications. And before combustion engines were actually invented, oil was just used to like light like in public lights and whatever, and it was just trying to use in like soaps, and they just tried to stick the whatever use the goddamn thing
Wherever
and
is possible.
whenever possible, right? And it was the other way around. They had a problem and it was just trying to find places to, and a lot of times it was struggling. A lot of times oil as a product before combustion engines came along, and then suddenly you could move the world with it. But a lot of times it was struggling. And again, what we really understood is that if you love the problem, then it's going to be a lot easier to let go because you'll just keep, you just keep with the problem, and you'll find
Yeah.
a different product to solve it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So thank you so much, Luis, for sharing your experience and your insights. And to finish up, could you share the biggest insight or learning you gained throughout your career? So imagine there would come a young founder, just the very beginner of building something new and building a new team. What would be your main advice to that person?
So first of all, if I would be giving this advice to a young entrepreneur or to a young CEO, I'll tell them this is a lot less sexy than you think it is. This is a lot less glamorous than you think it is, and you will want to give up 200 times. If you have a plan B, you'll take that plan B. So I normally say
Hmm.
this needs to be like in the circus, right? You need to go sometimes without a net, because if you have a safety net, you'll never learn how to how to walk on the line, right?
Hmm.
You're always going to fall, and the way to learn is that you can't feel like you have a safety net. You can't feel like you're going to fall, and a lot of times, the best entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs that feel like there's no other option. I need to make this work. And then the it needs to matter. Normally, if you fall in love with a problem instead of a product, it's going to give you a lot more margin to pivot. If the it is a product, then if it's a bad product, you're in trouble. So
Yeah.
I would just, again, number one, uh, encourage the person to double think and think if they're really passionate about doing that, because it's going to be a lot less sexy than they think it is. And number two, just fall in love with the problem. That's going to be my advice.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Luis.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe on the media of your choice. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And if you need help with your recruitment, please visit jobrely.com.